Come back to that in a moment. Thank you from Fox. Good morning, Jack Heath, J Dog on the boards. Looking at a pretty okay Tuesday to start, not as cold and chilly as yesterday. Excuse me. So we have, I call it milder, or just not as cold. And then we get kind of balmy by Thursday, even with some winds and rain coming in tomorrow night. Hey, by the way, tomorrow night, 6 p.m., we have our big night at the B&H stage right up the road here in Concord near Capitol, the main entrance, but a little bit down from the Capitol Center for the Arts. It's our open house, if you will. Our friends from Collette Travel and the Cowboy Trip it's like getting a half hour or 30-minute show on Yellowstone, but they're going to be there answering questions. If you have any questions about joining us this fall on my cowboy trip out to Yellowstone National Park, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Jackson Hole, Wyoming, going to be a fun week. Accommodations, hotel, all the local guides and tours, transportation, you name it, meals. And tomorrow night, we're going to hear from the folks who are hosting us. So come on by. It's free and open to the public. 6 p.m. tomorrow night. I'll be there and look forward to it. All right. Good morning on the Pulse of NH before we get to our regular contributors. A lot going on. A lot going on. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of NH. Our poll question on X at the Pulse of NH today. Do you support the U.S. temporarily stopping or halting military aid to the Ukraine? Yes or no? It's up there on our site. JDog can tell us results from yesterday. And if you're ready there, Butter, I can wait for you to give me a thumbs up. I guess you got it. Take it away, JDog. Yeah, there's a real divide on this one. The tariffs kicked in last night, and already this morning, as we saw the last time, the Trump administration talked about this and then backed off. Irving Energy, already warning New Hampshire energy customers, and also in Maine and New Hampshire, there's a whole heck of them, whole heck of a lot of them, whole heck of a lot of Irving Energy customers right here to expect your contracts to not be as much if there's a 25% tariff. In other words, you're going to be paying more. So if you're prepaid, you're going to be paying more. And Irving, it's not just the gas stations in the pump. It's the home delivery. It's the home energy. It's the commercial. So Irving's a big energy player right out of Canada. So you're going to start to, I guess, see that. And this is something I'll say in commentary today before we bring in Neil Levesque before the president's address tonight to Congress. I think this administration has to be acutely aware of, and that's any negative impact on inflation and consumers. I think they have to be real careful with it. But I'm not the economist in the group. And we have a lot more going on. I also want to take some time this morning in a moment or two to remember a fallen Concord, New Hampshire firefighter. I posted this on my show page. I'll tell you a little bit about the Concord firefighter. Very well thought of. Neil Levesque, one of our regular contributors out of the gate, St. Anselm College Institute of Politics, Executive Director. Good morning, Neil. Well, I said yesterday with some guests, I can't imagine a bigger list of major things going on. It's been a fast and furious period. And here we go. Really, it's been a while since now President Trump addressed a joint session of Congress. I don't think there could be more going on. And I guess if you're in the Trump camp and the Trump White House, you like pretty much all of it. And I do actually see what he's doing when it comes to the Ukraine, driving a better deal or driving them a little bit to a more appreciative deal. But some people are divided across the board, the federal workers, Doge, tariffs, the border. A lot to talk about tonight. And I don't know what the atmosphere or the mood's going to be, but a big deal, 9 p.m. tonight, Neil. Take it away. Yeah. Well, look at already Irving Oil already contacting customers, expect to pay more. Mhm. Yeah. Well, let's break it down a little bit, Neil, because, the midterms are not that far away. We got a big US Senate race here. We'll see if Jeanne Shaheen, the senior member of the federal delegation, wants to run again. But the Democrats here and nationally are watching, and they're watching inflation. They're watching the fact that the New Hampshire budget, I think, for some of the nonprofits and the important programs, and not, I'm sorry, not nonprofits, but you know what I mean, like um, kids that need transitional support during the day, some of the basic, really stuff that does a lot of good. About a third of all that money comes from the federal government. We know that there's belt tightening going on here and in New England. Kelly Ayotte's, unveiled her budget, but the border, I think 80-90% of the people like what the administration and this president and Department of Homeland Security and ICE have done in sanctuary cities, rounding up violent criminals who've been allowed to roam free and not detained or not locked up when they were arrested, securing the border. I think most people would say, yes, I like that. I think some of the pushback on the wokeness and the DEI stuff, I think even corporations, I think a lot of people are embracing that a little bit, but that was more of a feeling. There's been a ton of executive orders. Um, and the stuff with Ukraine, I think it's a very divided situation because in the end of the day, I see what the president's doing. It's called tough negotiating, getting Europe to step up. I don't think it's as bad as the critics are saying, and I think in the end, Zelensky needs to sign this deal because he needs the economic boost. But we'll see where it goes. But the tariffs is where I think he's playing with fire. He talked about it when he ran, so he's talking about he's actually doing it. This time, I think he had to because people would thought he was just talking again if he didn't actually impose them. But if people start paying more for energy here in New Hampshire, and we already pay the highest electricity and energy utility rates per capita in the country here in Maine, and they start paying more for groceries or wood if they're doing an addition on their home, or the carpenter or the remodeler is buying more stuff from Canada, paying more. They're going to charge that to guess who? The customer. That's me and you. So the part I don't understand are the tariffs because it sounds good to balance an imbalance in trade, but at what cost to the consumer? And you don't have that big of a window, and you need to help drive down consumer prices. So that's the piece that I think people need to watch. I agree with you. No, I agree with you on that. What? Right. Well, Neil, you and I know he's got some very the Secretary of the Treasury. No one's talking about very sharp person. He's got the Commerce Secretary. Got some smart economic thinkers around him. Stephen Miller's a pretty sharp person. And I just think that the inflationary stuff is the biggest thing they have to watch because, really, this last election, one reason why I think there were a lot of reasons, by the way, that he beat Harris in the electoral and popular vote. In the end, she couldn't even tell what she wanted to do if elected, and she couldn't tell how she was going to be different. But really, the economy, the economy, the economy, the economy. It's always the economy. And this time around, we still have an uncertain economy. The markets don't like uncertainty. I just think they have to be very cognizant of individuals' pocketbooks and wallets and grocery prices, utilities, home goods costs. That's where I think people are going to say, wait a minute, I really had confidence in a lot of this stuff. I thought the Trump administration would be better on the economy. That's why I voted for him. And I really thought they were going to start to help drive down prices. So when I went to buy groceries or pay my utility bill or fill up my car at the pump, that I would be having more money in my pocket. And if it goes the other way, I think that's the one bit of slippery ice that they have to watch. Yep. Mhm. And well, but the problem is when you're in charge, you can't blame Joe Biden anymore. You can't say it's his inflation when you're in charge. It's like being the new general manager or the coach of a football team, and you come out of the gate and you're not winning. You can't blame the former coach. But real fast, the other one is federal workers and Doge and Elon Musk. Even though Elon Musk may be less popular than Donald Trump, I do think 7 out of 8 people out there, obviously not federal workers, kind of applaud dealing with waste. It's a very popular thing they're doing, I think. All right. Hey, listen, we're going to let you go. Neil Levesque, we'll see 9 p.m. tonight. Do you think people behave? Is it civil and respectful? Or do you think we're going to see some jeering or people turning their backs or yelling and screaming? Thank you, Neil Levesque, St. Anselm, one of our great academic political contributors. Thank you, Neil. I just want to thank you, Neil. Before we go to break, hundreds of firefighters honored Concord firefighter C.J. Gerard. Christopher C.J. Gerard was just 39 years old, Concord firefighter. He passed unexpectedly at his home Saturday night after a brief illness. Firefighters from the Concord Fire Department, several other departments escorted him from the Concord Hospital through parts of Concord right next door, and they were in our parking lot here, J-Dog, at Benny Media, former Walker School, and across from the funeral home at the Bennett Funeral Home at Concord. Hospital firefighters lined up, and that's what firefighters do, and law enforcement. And I just want to express, I never met him, but didn't know him. There's so many great firefighters out there, public people who protect us publicly. But I want to just thoughts and prayers going out to CJ Gerard, his wife and children. He was just 39 years old, fallen firefighter, Concord, New Hampshire. Take a moment, just a moment, maybe thoughts on him, and we'll go to a break. All right, we are back, and interesting polls going on, if you believe them. Surveys, maybe that's what we should do: is ban the name polls and call them surveys. Michael Graham, NH Journal, NewHampshireJournal.com, looking at the U.S. Senate and also the tariff question with especially Canada. Good morning, Michael. Well, someone had to be. Right. I, I I'm on I just wanna have fun with this for a moment because I'm not trying to, question the poll results to a point, but I think there's a dramatic difference between Jean Shaheen and Joe Biden's cognitive and physical state at her age. Well, yeah. Well, I think that should be a I think that should be 100% support at some point. What about if you throw in names like okay, yep. Well, look at I think Governor Mills in Maine is having a lot of fun defending this. But real quickly, what about if you throw other names in the Senate race, like a Scott Brown, like a yeah, but okay, that's you're stacking it a little bit there because he's well known for the past 4 terms, 8 years. He's well liked. He's out. Yeah, no, but I'm saying, all right. So I don't think he's going to run, Chris Sununu. I think he's moving on, but I may be wrong. What about the tariffs? Because I'm trying to figure this one out. And okay, this is my question for you. I understand because President Trump, candidate Trump, running again, talked about tariffs a lot, especially with China. And but Canada and Mexico, we're already getting Irving Energy sending notices out to customers. That makes business owners nervous on energy. And I understand trying to balance a trade deficit or trade situation with a trading partner if you feel it's out of balance, but at what cost? And if these tariffs stick, at what point, even if you're trying to get companies to move out of Mexico to make your Honda hybrid in America, if people are paying more for groceries and energy, is this good or bad? Does the Trump administration, are they worried about inflation or not? I'm asking you straight up. Okay, so why on Canada? Why the tariffs on Canada? How can you call I don't know if you call someone who's president, even if you don't like him and agree with him, an idiot. Old no, hold on, old and confused. That's a nicer way. Right. We don't have enough suppliers here of natural gas. Yeah, we don't have enough natural gas. Well, it takes natural gas. It takes natural gas to make electricity. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. I have to run. Thank you, Michael Graham, NAjournal.com. Thank you. All right. He's fired up, huh? Wow. Wow. All right. We come back. We'll update you on some of the other news talk. Doug Tengden, our own economist and economic thinker, great partner and sponsor, World Market Advisors. He's with us on Monday. He's going to join us again before we get through this half hour coming up, just on the impact on these tariffs. We're already seeing some of the Canadian reaction locally, of course, neighbor to the north. And we're going to get a quick check-in on a good open house tomorrow night, B&H Stage and Theater and Facility, 6 p.m. We'll tell you why. You can be there free and open to the public tomorrow night, right close to where our Capitol studios are. Back on a Pulse of a Nation in a moment. All right, we are back, and as we get going on this Tuesday morning, we'll have more on the address to Congress tonight. I can't. I'll tell you, I can't think of more stuff as a backdrop. And here we go. Buckle up. We'll hear from some of our regular contributors on that in a little bit. We're gonna get reaction from one of our own economic experts on these tariffs that kicked in at midnight last night. Now, there's a little bit of a period before these things actually get real or kick in, but already this morning we're seeing some Irving Energy, Irving Oil, Irving, of course, they do propane, natural gas. I think they do all that. But Irving Energy, the gas stations, are already letting customers know that Canada will respond. It's probably going to cost you more for your energy. I think the energy portion is 10%, not 25, but you get the drift. We're going to come back to that. We'll take a break though. Andrew with Colette Travel, he's in New Hampshire. We got a big night tomorrow night. I mentioned it at the open of the show. You are welcome to join us. BNH Stage, great facility. That's the place. That's the show where the shows are for Capital Center for the Arts. Part one of their great facilities right up the road here near the State House. 16 South Main Street tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. And you're going to get a free show and question and answer if you want to join us out west in October for a tremendous trip. And our host, Andrew and Colette folks, are there. They're going to answer your questions. It all happens tomorrow night, free and open to the public. Good morning, Andrew. Well, I want to talk a little more about why folks, if they want a good escape and have some fun and plan a little bit to the fall, take their mind off stuff, maybe do a bucket list trip where, Yellowstone National Park, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It doesn't get much better than that in a week, but great accommodations. And you're the head football coach putting all this together. So tell us why people should be there tomorrow night. Yeah, a lot of fun. So you're actually going to show some of this stuff. We're going to see this tomorrow night, right? Someone who heard our last one of our interviews, Andrew, be in studio tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow night, 6 p.m. It's free and open to the public. 16 South Main Street, Concord. 16 South Main Street. Plenty of parking in that section of Concord right out front, and BNH Stage. Come on in and have fun. I'll be there. Andrew, you had mentioned, and a listener, a friend, someone who was listening asked me more. You had mentioned 5 museums. You've done this trip, and then one of the locations, there's 5 art museums, and you got through all of them, but it's hard for people, and there's almost so much on the plate to see. Where was that again? Oh, awesome. Mhm. Awesome. All right, be there tomorrow night. Meet Andrew and the team, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. And that's right around the corner. Tomorrow, 6 p.m., 16 South Main Street, B&H Stage. Thank you, Andrew. All right, before we go to Doug Tangden in the next break, talking about these tariffs, and I'm going to just be totally candid on the record here. There are a lot of times in some commentary, I see through what Donald Trump, the president, is doing, and I'll give you some smaller examples. When that just really sad, terrible airplane accident happened with the smaller American airline coming in on the correct trajectory to land across, low on the Potomac and colliding or crashing with the Army Black Hawk helicopter. The next day, President Trump came out while the federal investigators were still looking into this with his new transportation secretary in the wings at the White House. And I thought personally, listening and professionally, because it was at the end of our show, that he was going a little bit too far on conjecture or giving thoughts on what caused the plane crash when he turned out to be exactly right. And I was amazed that of course, he flies a lot, and he has his own. Doesn't fly his own planes, I don't think, but he flies a lot. Now he has a pretty good one called Air Force One, although he's not happy with Boeing on the new one. But the point is, he knew, and he just knew enough or briefed enough to say that something wasn't adding up with when the inside the Black Hawk helicopter at its altitude, and it should have known, and obviously there were problems there. It was just a sad accident, but that's a small example. And then there are times when he'll say something about Venezuelan gangs during the election and go to Aurora, Colorado, and the local officials there are like, oh, we don't have a problem with violent gangs and migrants who are parts of gangs like this Venezuelan gang or the MS-13. And lo and behold, Trump was right. Or he went to North Carolina to look at the remnants and the disaster after Hurricane Helene, and he blasted FEMA, and he should have, and he was right. And everyone at the time, including national networks, were saying he's off base, he's spreading falsehoods about FEMA, and they did a terrible job, and they shouldn't have been out of money if they didn't spend who knows how many hundreds of billions of dollars on emergency shelter in major cities for illegal migrants. We would have had more money to take care of our hurricane victims in Florida and then, of course, North Carolina. So a lot of times Trump may not seem right at the time, and he turns out to be. Now, I happen to think in some commentary and opinion on the Ukraine situation, I've noticed some very smart folks and everyone who are just flipping out, thinking that Trump is just, a lackey or a lapdog for Putin and is minimalizing the Ukraine and all that. But I actually see what he's doing in a very tough way of negotiating. He's trying to get the Ukrainian leader, President Zelensky, to come back to the table to really talk more about wanting to end the war and wanting peace and agreeing to the mineral rights deal if he wants. But Trump doesn't want a protracted war. And he is feeling, obviously, suspending military aid. It's hard to get a number, but I think by looking the other day, melding, I think taxpayers, Americans have supported the war in Ukraine with Russia, about $170 billion, including equipment, including, latest tanks, air defense missiles, money, training, medical. There's a lot there. And at some point, Trump and others, including Zelensky, and I don't know about Putin, everyone should want an end to the war. But in the past, there have been criticisms in foreign policy in that part of the world that NATO nations are not doing enough, or that NATO nations are not supporting NATO to the level the U.S. was, or certainly European nations were not spending enough on their own security, and the U.S. was always the one expected to be the heavy. And Trump is trying to shift the load. And if you don't see that, you just are so full of political whatever that you don't see it. And if this thing does come to a truce and an end, there's going to be negotiating. And obviously, I think Vladimir Zelensky was negotiating in public in front of the media Friday. As much as people think he was bullied, I think he was pushing to get that economic agreement signed with a security guarantee, which President Trump and the administration was not willing to give. And I got to tell you, you may not like this as much as you want the people of the Ukraine to be free and independent again. American president should not guarantee security on a what if down the road, not knowing what that would look like in terms of boots on the ground or committing us to a war that we don't even know what the details are yet. So if it's an economic agreement, fine. But Trump wants Zelensky to apologize for the other day, kind of crawl in and sign the deal. and talk more about peace. But, certainly suspending the military aid is a wake up call for the Ukrainian leader because I'm going to be honest again, the United States does not need an economic deal with Ukraine. Let me repeat that. The U.S. does not need an economic deal with Ukraine. The Ukraine needs an economic deal for the mineral rights of the U.S. for billions of dollars. Let me repeat that. The U.S. does not need a deal with the Ukraine. That we don't need it. It is not vitally important to us. It would be nice to have if it's a step towards truce and ending the war, but we don't need it. President Zelensky does. And he had a funny way of showing it on Friday. But I think we knew going in that he wasn't going to agree to that deal. And I think he knew it. And I think both sides wanted this. I think, and you know what? No one's reported this. I haven't read about it in Washington Post, New York Times. I think both sides had eyes wide open. They both knew the media was going to be there. I love all these people. Oh, Zelensky didn't know it was going to be open like that. Yeah, he did. They knew that they knew at 6 that morning or midnight the night before, his protocol people. And his own ambassador to the US had her head in her hands because she couldn't believe that he was interrupting and arguing openly with the American president. Now, you might say that's good for Zelensky, that, Zelensky, he stood up to Trump. Zelensky stood up to Trump, but he's sitting in the Oval Office of the United States of America that has funded this war by probably closer to 200 billion. And, you don't interrupt President Trump in the Oval Office or any president and start, basically toe to toe with him. And, good for you if you have that much confidence in yourself, but you are a very small player on the world stage compared to the United States. You are a very small player, and we don't need the deal. So Trump is negotiating. That's what he's doing. And I know you don't see that, but that's what he's doing. And hopefully it results in something good for the world. How's that for commentary? And meanwhile, Europe is already stepping up. So there you go. Tonight will be a different story, but there'll be a lot about the border, a lot about the deportation of violent criminals. President Trump will talk, I'm sure, about the Ukraine and the war. He's probably, I don't know if about the tariffs. We'll see where that goes, but it's going to be a joint session tonight at 9. We're going to come back and get economic reaction from one of our own experts on the tariffs that will take a while to kick in, but already seeing signs from Canada right here at home. Doug Tengden on deck. I want to get Doug Tengden on again, our economic thinker, looking at this thing from a multi-country point of view, but right here at home, already Irving Energy customers in New Hampshire, commercial and residential, plus people that go to Irving to get, so many Irving gas stations with the stores on the highways and the communities here. Already sending out notice to American customers, hey, this tariff is probably, it's going to cost you some more. So reaction to the tariffs, Canada, Mexico, probably not as much with China. Doug Tengden, I worry about inflation, but what is the strategy? What is the thought process? Because Canada's already responding. Mexico hasn't yet, but they probably will. What is the strategy here for the White House? What is the president really after here when it comes to Canada? Well, it may look good on paper, but what's the 3 to 6 month, 9 month impact on everyday consumer prices for building, for wood, for energy, for gas, for food, for things that we may trade our trading partners? If we're gonna, are consumers gonna pay more? Will they not see it right away? What's the thought? Well, that's a jump, and then, of course, building what Canada, a lot of our builders and lumber yards import a lot from Canada. Energy, you're already seeing even 10% of Irving. I mean, that's gonna, not it's not probably great for the economy right here in New England. Well, well, yeah, well, the other thing too is, though, Canada's gotta be trying to calculate, they're not, they're Trudeau's already on his way out. Canada, I don't know how they stand, as I know their healthcare, everyone talks about how they have accessible healthcare. All I do is see lines, down in the snow and the cold when they open a doctor's office, because their people have to wait 6 months to see a doctor in Canada. So I don't know what the economy is there, but I imagine they're not as strong as they think. So when they calculate these tariff impacts, it does sort of promote whether you're, a premier of Ontario or a province or leader of the labor, Trudeau's party, the other party, because they're parliamentary system. It does make them get together and their economic ministers and say, look, we don't benefit from this either. So what can we give President Trump will make him lift these tariffs? What can we trade here? No pun intended. I got to believe they're looking at that. Yeah. All right, Doug. Well, I appreciate the cameo. I appreciate the a cameo on this, and we'll see where it goes. Doug Tangdon, worldmarketadvisors.com. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, the problem is I think the tariff trade wars, tariff policies are a very awkward thing because it takes a little bit of while they kick in, and then inevitably no prices are lowered. So that's an issue. And it might take a while before you start seeing like Mexico. You've already seen that Honda has announced they'll start producing the new Honda. I think it's Civic Hybrid in America. That takes time. Businesses, to build a home, to build a home can, a new home can take upwards of a year between the site work, excavation. So doing new plants takes a couple years. Moving a plant and operation where you've planned, moving employees, hiring, all these things are not instant. So things will take a while. I just don't know if we have the bandwidth between now and then when it comes to everyday grocery prices. All right, we'll be back. We got a lot going on. Hey, Alexa, hey, Google, play the Pulse of an H.